Hey, welcome to the Shepherding Movement and Me. This is a production of Elijah Bones Ministries, and I'm your host, Stephen Whitsett. So you're listening to the story of one young man's journey through the world of the Christian cults, spiritual abuse, and the world of church legalism. Those are the kind of things that shapes a life for a lifetime until Christ brings healing. Now, for the sake of privacy, names have been changed, or at least most of the names won't be used. Well, as a disclaimer, the ministry, I would say, has been redeemed. It still exists down there, but under different names. And it is, quote, my cousin that I've talked about, who has redeemed this place. And even still, the people that were in there, they're still around that from years ago. And I don't know how to say it, but there's still a real deep love for those people. Frank in particularly, and I miss those guys. There's some great people there. They've changed. A lot of things have changed, and it's actually been kind of a blessing. Frank has the same birthday as I do, December 1st, and we've exchanged happy birthdays now for years on end. And I wish him all the best. At least twilight years. I'm 60. I know he's got to be almost 70 or somewhere right through there. But I just love the guy. Where I left off last was about, we were talking about that last night, December 29th, when this junior elder had come home and broke several axes and cussed his way through an evening of complaining of why we haven't done anything. As a reminder, us boys were the ones that were responsible for chopping the wood that went into these little tiny cabins that had been built to feed the wood stoves. And without the wood, of course, people get mighty cold. And we are December 29th we're talking about. So, yeah, it was cold out. Some cabins still hadn't, and I think us boys was one of them that was the last one to have any type of a heat put into it. And, you'd start that fire up at night and it'd be done by 2 or 3 and you'd still freeze to death. But it was our job to chop all the wood. So, as I explained, he came back. I told my dad about it. He denied it. My dad came back to me, talked about it. And I said, yeah, Dad, that's what he did. And I know my dad believed me over him, his quote-unquote covenant brother. Because he knew when I was lying. So it was, that was kind of a given, he knows when I'm not telling the truth. But here I was sincere in what happened. Well, this junior elder went to the other elders, and they had a little powwow with Dad, and then they finally called Dad in and said, you're believing your son over your covenant brother. And my dad was very adamant, and they said, well, I guess it's if you're going to violate that covenant, then you're one of them breaking it, and so you're released from any kind of promises that you've made to us, and you've broken it. You're under condemnation, and we'll kick you out for the destruction of your flesh until you repent and come back or something. And my dad said, hey, you're releasing me? I'm leaving. He came back to my mom and I and the others and told us that we're leaving, and we're going to do it tonight. So we started to pack up all of our bags and get going. And we didn't say anything. And as we started to walk out, we passed up all the lean-to, hooches, whatever you want to call them, that we were living in, these little tiny things. And we were passing by Stan's house, the main house, where, of course, the leader had all the anemones, a 3-bedroom home that we had built for him out of the wood. And, full kitchen, big living room with everybody could live in it, big enough for it. And all the amenities that, I think running water inside maybe. But he talked to him and they told him what was going on. He hadn't heard anything about it. They hadn't come to him and told him that they were kicking my dad out. And this is my dad's cousin. This is my, family. The two of them that had started the whole thing. Well, they went back to the elders and talked to him and He said, yeah, he's kicked out. So he came back and says, well, they say you got to leave. You got to go. and he graciously, he told him, don't tell him, but he gave my dad some money, 40, $50. I'm not sure how much, but gave him some money. And as we got ready to get going, it was Mom and I who started to argue with Dad and said, come on, we could stay the night. There's no place for us to go. There's nothing we can do. We can't sit there and walk all night and you know, what's going to happen? So let us at least start off in the morning and we'll do it that way. And so that's what we did. We went back into the cabins. Dad agreed. And we slept. And at 4:30, whatever it might have been, woke us all up. We gathered our things. We had nothing to eat. But we grabbed the suitcases and we started to walk into town. And it was pitch black when we did it, you know, within an hour or so it was starting to be a little bit lighter. And with that also came the bus, the school bus that normally picks all those kids up from the farm. It drives by with all of the other kids still on it, and of course that one little cute girl that I really liked. She's on the back of the bus, and she's looking out and looking at this family of 7 carrying suitcase, walking 10 miles into town. Just a little bit embarrassing, especially with each car that passed by. It was like, wow, you know. Well, we walked the 10 miles into town. We came to the gas station on the far side. And, I mean, at that point in time, there was only one gas station really around. And we waited. My dad called up a friend named Nick Cornelius. Nicholas, and great guy, biggest heart, a friend, in my book, a man's man. I don't know how to just describe him without sounding mushy, but I have a lot of respect for him. Love him dearly for what he did for us and the way he was there for us. He was a tuba player in the Air Force band. And he had to go to work that day, so he couldn't get out of it. So after work, about 5 o'clock, he came down and got us. Almost 3 hours to get down. Picked us up at 8 o'clock and drove us back to Omaha. Now during the day, of course, the vans came, the drivers and some of the other men from the home, as they went about their business and stuff, came in to get gas and things like that. And they saw us, but nobody ever said anything. Nobody came to us and approached us. Never mentioned a word to us. And, you know, we were ostracized at that point, just like what you hear with Mormonism and others when, you know, people leave the community, you know, they're anathema. So we waited. We finally got back to Omaha, and I don't remember much of the trip, but there were 7 of us packed into this little vehicle, and almost like sardines. Came home at night, crawled into bed on a couch or the floor or something, and that's where we stayed. And that's where we were for the next 3 or 4 days until Mom got a job. I started school. Benson High School is what it was. Benson High. They got a picture of me in the yearbook from that 78, 79. Full-page picture of me swimming and touching the wall and coming up out of it after a race. It's quite funny. Namely because I was only there for the school at, maybe 2 or 3 weeks. I made the yearbook. From there, I switched over to, because where we moved, I ended up at Omaha Tech High. But we started all over with nothing. And I mean, with nothing. We went into kind of like government housing type of thing on the south side of town. And worked our way back up from there to actually getting a home on 50th and Leavenworth, I believe it was. That might have been where we went afterwards anyway. But somehow or another, I don't know how we got the money and all of that, but we ended up in this place and continued on. I had missed 3 months of that school. I would have been my junior year. I think it would have been my junior year. I got to think about it. I graduated in 80, so that's 79, 80, 78. My sister graduated, and then I did a year later. So, yeah, a year and a half is all that we were there. So that would have been the middle of my junior year, and then into high school, senior year, the last year. And swam on the team both times, co-captain, and co-captain both years. I love the swimming part. That's a different story, of course. But graduated and ended up going to Bible college right afterwards. And the whole thing is that I don't know why it didn't affect me like it did my sisters and brothers. It just didn't. I think the young ones don't remember too much about it. The older sister, she won't have nothing to do with it. My other brother, he he understands it, but still, they didn't want nothing to do with it. And then over the years, I remember my dad telling me one time that him and Stuart were, which is my brother, went down there to part of a job picking up cars and transporting cars and stuff. They went down there and they were driving by, and so they decided to sneak into the property and see what was going on. And they're hiding around trying to see what they can see, that kind of a thing. But the ministry ended up buying this restaurant right off the main highway. They called it Countryside Inn, and my cousin was the head cook there, and they managed it, and they were window washing and everything else. And then over the years, I find out that they, started raising cattle and on the property and selling cattle and making good money. Then over the years, actually, I should go back. Within the first 6 months, I think it was about the first 6 months, that Stan, the leader, came up to Omaha and apologized and said, we were wrong for kicking you out. And I remember we went out to a Red Lobster. We met him, Mom and Dad. I was back from college, so that was after I started college, my freshman year. And I was there for the summer, and he and Dad got together and talked. And so we're going to go out there, and Stan and him and a couple of us. I don't remember if the other kids were with it, but I was in college, and so I had my fangs out. I got a year of Bible under my belt, and don't mess with me kind of a thing. But we met there, and as he talked, that was what I challenged on. I mean, if that was really the ministry that it was supposed to be, then we're supposed to be reaching people. And is the ministry reaching people? And he goes, well, yeah, I reached my accountant. We got her saved. And that's the only person he can point to in all those years. 3 years, 2 or 3 years that we've been out. It wasn't until 87 when I got married. I'm part of the honeymoon, 88, that we went back to visit Mom and Dad, and I took the southern route and forced Kelly to go to the countryside, and we got over there, and the guy who caused the whole thing, he was there, wouldn't talk to me. But the other guys did, and I sat down and had dinner on the house, of course, me and Kelly, and we got to see everybody there and talk a little bit and things, and so, clear the air with a couple of them because they just had no idea, some of the things that happened that night. And it ended kind of well. It ended okay. So then, from that point forward, there's been no contact. There's been no nothing. We got a notice because of Facebook. I was able to connect with my cousin Bobby, their youngest son, who was part of it and came back, and we heard the stories of things that had happened. Gary and his wife ended up being divorced. Many of the other couples ended in divorce. It would have been my sophomore year. I contacted a family that had left, and they were now living in Mission Viejo, down south over there somewhere. And we spent a day. I took a train, Amtrak train, and spent the weekend with them. And some of the others that had gone out, we had gathered there. I believe, I can't remember. I thought it was Chuck Smith's house that we were there with him, that they were getting part and involved with him in Southern California. But we spent the day there, and then talked about and ran it. Just it was a good day, and then came back. But after that, there's no contact at all until my honeymoon in 87, 88. I guess Kelly was pregnant. Yeah, just getting pregnant, just pregnant. When we went down there and visited. And then, so I was talking about the contact. We've had contact with them over the years, with their sons, and kept in touch and stuff. And so Stan had passed away, and then Mary Ann, his wife, and I made the effort to go with Bobby. I went down there for the family gathered, and it was just family that was supposed to gather, nobody else. But they graciously let me in with them, and that's when I was able to see what the changes that had been made. No longer a cattle farm, and just completely repurposed. A lot of people have left and gone on, and some people have stuck around in town and around, but just a shell of what it used to be or what it was intended to be. And like I said, my cousin had restored it. If I was to talk for a minute, the lasting effects of that. Years now down the road, of course, I've turned into a little bit of a hoarder. I don't get rid of things very easily. We didn't have things back then. And the little things that we did have, we lost, of course. And so I tend to have this tendency to hold on to things so I don't lose them. One of those things that had survived the ministry and that kept is when Dad had a heart attack, he was gone. I got into drawing, and I did a lot of drawing of different things. And it was, medicine to the soul, I guess. But I've got a stack of those drawings still with me. I still hold on to them this day. Some things have been lost, but there might be a few other things that I've held on to, but most everything is gone by now. But, it's just that kind of attachment to your past that you want to hold on to. What else? Food. I like to eat still. I hate being hungry. I like having choices. Still can't stand liverwurst, Braunschweiger, salmon patties. What else? Tuna casserole, and several other things like that. But one of the great foods that we were introduced was tiadas. A Latino family introduced that. It's like a Mexican pizza. You put the tortilla down, the beans, the meat, tomatoes, the onions, all of the cheese. Put another tortilla on top of that. Spread the meat, the beans, do it all over again. But you finally top it all off with the lettuce and pour enchilada sauce all over. Oh, so good. There was one night, a Wednesday night, when we were having the quote-unquote the family meal. I was helping Mom in the kitchen, serving food up and cleaning the dishes off and things. And when I got to eat, man, I ate, and that's what they had that night. She had made tiadas. I had asked her to, but they had made it to the tiadas, and I just stuffed myself so bad that when I finally got through, I went upstairs, laid down in my bed for about 3 minutes, and then went and puked it all up and went back and laid down. But it was a good meal. And did I tell you about the time they had the barbecue there on the property and community one night, helping her out with the chicken? I probably ate a whole chicken before anybody knew what was going on. Piece after piece. Just constantly hungry. Constantly cold. I mean, 2-3 pairs of pants, 2 or 3 pairs of shirts, and trying to go to school. And that would have been my... that would have been my sophomore year, I guess. All of that, or junior year, into there. Time, it's just weird. Okay, I'm 60, so you got to understand this is what happens with time. It just clouds the memories. And for a lot of people, it turned them off from Christian ministry. Some of them have got into it, and some of them gotten out of it. And for me, it's just driven me closer. And I've talked about why and some of the things that have happened. As I went through Bible college by myself, and those experiences that I had, and some times of real intimacy and friendships, and some of those friendships, of course, still here today. And so, yeah, some of those things did affect me quite a bit, and have affected me. But what I've done is, I went to school in 80. 81. I went through the first 3 years. I couldn't finish up my last year, and that was because the Pell Grant system was first instituted back then. And other than that, I was paying for my schooling myself. I'm the one who was working for the college, which was a great experience because I get to sit with these teachers after class and cleaning the rooms, and got to talk with them. My first year there as the janitor, I worked for Jack Hayford himself, and he had his own office there. It very rarely came down, but I would be up at 6 o'clock. I would be there to open up the doors and unlock everything, and then I had to clean out some offices and stuff and vacuum. And, I had those duties that I had to do, but every morning I had to clean out the president's office, make sure it was clean and neat. And, I would come in there 99% of the time with nobody in there, but the one morning I come and there was Jack Hayford, and first time I got to meet him, and, empty his trash. It was Jack Hamilton, who just recently died. That was the president back then. And over the years, I got to meet a lot of people. One of them was John and Jean Firth. They were missionaries from down in Colombia. And they're the ones from the movie, if anybody has ever seen it or looked it up or heard of it. And two shall become 1,000. Something like that. But it was about their ministry down in Bogota, Colombia. I got to help them one night as they were packing up to go back down there after being on furlough. That I helped him and sat there and listened to these missionary stories, just me and him. That was a great night. And there was a lot of chances for me to meet a lot of other people. I ended up getting married, and like I said, that was in '87. I got married to Kelly. Now, Kelly's brother-in-law and her sister were pastors at Church on the Way. And this is, you have to look it up in Google, Church on the Way with Pastor Jack Hayford. And so now I've kind of like married into the family. There were some things that went on, and I'm not going to get into great detail with them, but I ended up working with my brother-in-law at Federal Express for 2 or 3 years. And he ended up going back to the church and getting hired on. And I worked at several different churches as a youth pastor, assistant pastor, and associate pastor all those years. It was in the 90s that we went to a retreat conference out in Hawaii. And while I was out there, me and Chip is his name, Chip Grace, we were walking out on the beach together. And, we did talk, we did everything together because we're family. Our two sisters, our wives are sisters, so naturally we're going to be together. And it was a couple of nights later, I ran into Jack Hamilton, and he asked me, how do you know Chip? And I looked at him and I said, Jack, our wives are sisters. Oh, I didn't know that, And this is that, I'm now family. I'm part of the inside crowd because of who I married, kind of a thing. And it afforded me a lot of things. I went back. I didn't get to finish college there, and so when I was working at the church with Terry Samples, he made the deal, instead of getting a pay raise, that hey, go back to school and we'll help pay for your schooling. We'll pay half of it. And so I was able to go back, get a Pell Grant that paid for half, and the church paid for the other half of that. And when I finally graduated, and it would have been in '97, we were there. And this is one of the funny things that happens. Foursquare is a small type of family. When I was there, I came up to Chip, who was talking with Dick Scott, who is the president of Life Bible College at that time. And I walked up, and I was waiting for the two of them to talk. I was going to say something to Chip, and I'm in my, graduation robe and things. And when they stopped, Dick's like, hey, can I help you? I said, oh, I was just talking to Chip. And he looked at me kind of like what? And Chip introduced, oh, yes, this is my brother-in-law. And introduced me. And Dick goes, brother-in-law, and I didn't know it. This whole all this time you've been here, and I didn't. Yeah, nope. I never ever brought up to people that I was Chip's brother-in-law. Kept that quiet all the way through, but it was interesting when people found out who I was, quote unquote, related to. And trust me, I never got any kind of special privileges or services or anything else because of it. And that, of course, ministry over 30 years, that's a completely different subject. I've been through church splits, church problems, infighting, backbiting, you name it. I've been through it. I have been through it. Which kind of leads me into an idea of my next service, a podcast will be concerning the deliverance ministry and some of the things that I've been through and some of the things that I've seen, and just kind of a background on all of that. And it ties into some of the things that happen in the ministry, the community. I mean, it started there and it's worked its way up through, as I talked about in one of the other episodes. But what eventually happened, let me kind of finish out the story a little bit. I worked as a youth pastor and assistant pastor ended up over 3 different churches. The last one was Venice Foursquare Church. And that's where I decided to take a senior pastor out here in Fremont, Nebraska, moving back close home, of course. But then by this time, my mom and dad have moved up to Minnesota. I've got a brother, sister, and another brother that are here. So they were close by. It was my older sister that moved up there with my mom up into the area. Minnesota is where they went. So I moved to get closer to the family, and here they moved away. But I moved to a small town in Fremont and became the senior pastor here and was here for about 3 years. Now, here's the thing, and you'll understand this, some people. I was here when I started the whole process. I'd been through a pretty hard time with that other church when it had closed, and been kind of through 2 churches that have self-destructed, in a sense. So kind of, didn't think I should, and one person thought I should, but I came out here and I took over a church where the last pastor pretty much did what he wanted to. And I got all the church records and everything else, and you can see a pattern when you look at the checks. First, they're being signed by 2 people. Next thing you know, it's being signed by his wife. The next thing you know, he's forging his wife's signature, and then the account's closed over a 2 or 3 year time period. So you kind of figure out what's going on there. But they had sold the church building. Now, this is the Fremont Foursquare Church. This building had, I've got the charter. I don't think I have it in my house. Yeah, I got it sitting out on the wall. I've got the original church charter that is signed by Amy Semple McPherson. And so it's out there. We still have that in some of the records from the church. But the last pastor, he sold the property because he said it was getting too old and too costly to continue to repair the roof and things. So he sold it. They didn't do the money right, got into their personal account. And he began to spend and buy things whatever he wanted to, and doing things without council or council's approval. And so after about a year, they figured out what he's done. He's spent all the money, and he's got the church down into $80,000 in debt, I guess is what it was, $40,000 to $80,000 that he has spent. They kick him out, and the church is trying to survive without a pastor for about a year. And that's where I was requesting to go back to the Midwest somewhere where they could use me, and that's when I was told about the Fremont. I said, hey, it has a parsonage, it has a church that's already been there, and sure, let's go for it. Well, I get out here, and church is down to about 30 people. There's no pastor been there for a year. People have been left. Building is sold. There is no building. And the people that are left are all one family, one patriarch, and the rest, his kids and their grandkids. I mean, that makes up the majority of the church. And I'm supposed to walk into this. He complained about the way things were done, and I said, well, that's not the way it's done. Here's the book. And I gave the book. This is the duties of the council. This is how the way the church is supposed to operate with finances, the whole 9 yards. And this is the way we're going to do it. And I said, I'll give it to you and let you read it. I came back a week later. Well, did you get it read? No, I haven't got it read. A chance to read it yet. So I waited another week. Hey, have been able to read the bylaws and see how the church is supposed to run. And goes, hey, I can't find it. Pretty much he had thrown it away. And so after about 3 years of battling with this guy, and that would have been in 2006, I ended up having to close the church down because it was a point of just outright rebellion and disruption. I wasn't going to bring any other people into this atmosphere until something happened, and I announced one morning that I was going to sabbatical, and he thought I was leaving. I don't know where his communication was, but he went out and changed the locks and then called up my boss, and there was such stuff that went on back and forth that I had no clue. And working for churches are rough. I got about 13 minutes. I'm gonna kind of put this out there. What happened next is that I went to go help another church in the area in Omaha. So it's 23 minutes away. Work. I'm trying to find another job. I'm trying to close down the old church and things. And so this one couple that's got a church and said, hey, come on over. We'll work with you. Come over and we'll give you a place to fellowship since you've lost everything. I said, okay, that's great. So we met with them a couple of times. I told them things and talked about things. And I was there, and I kind of took over sound system with the worship team, was trying to do all that, and just helping them out. Not a whole lot of different things, but what I confronted him with and what he didn't like was he was supporting Creflo Dollar and other name it and claim it and, the prosperity people. And I kind of said, that's probably not a good thing. And that kind of just put the wedge in there between the two of us, and it kind of festered to a point where the denomination, the bosses said, hey, why don't you put Steve on there so he can keep his license going? And he came back. Now, this is a guy who came out of the insurance industry. He has not been pastoring for more than 3 years. He's never had any kind of seminary training whatsoever. And he's not even ordained yet. They don't ordain people until after about 6-7 years of ministry. So he's not ordained or anything else. And he's got me, who is a senior pastor in another church that closed down. I'm there and asked him, hey, can you put him on and give him his license? And when I talked with him about that, his response was this. And it just floored me. And those, when I told them about what happened, now they go, he said, no, you got to work under me for 2 or 3 years, and then I'll bring you on staff. But you got to work for me, and I'll teach you everything. And I just kind of looked at, are you kidding me? You really are kidding me. I've been ministry for over 25 years. You've barely been in it, for 3, and I'm supposed to sit in you for 2 or 3 years. Then you might put me on staff. And I said, no, that's kind of problematic. And I went back to the Foursquare and told them, and they went back to talk to him. And, he went off all tracks on me, telling them that I did this and I was doing this. And, I did some things that were kind of immoral concerning money or finances in the church and things like this. So they sent a representative up there to sit down with me and my wife and talk about it all. And we had to sit there and go through and explain to everything. And when we got done explaining to him, he goes, wow, really? That's the truth of it. I go, yeah, that's it. I guess they went back to him and said, hey, this is what's true. And his response was, well, we're out of Foursquare. And he quit the denomination, took his church, left the building, left the bills, and just took off. And no longer Foursquare Church. And that's how people are. That's how it's a rough business trying to be a pastor. You always got people coming at you from both sides. They see you as the boss. They see you as a threat. They see you as everything else but as a friend, I guess. I mean, I've had one pastor sit there and tell me, he says, the congregation, they're my congregation. They are not my friends. And, wow. I know people do it differently and how they pastor is differently, but some of the things that I've seen and experienced over the years, from being in that cult and community, coming out, and then working so many years under other people. Well, in 2006 is when I left. We were at that church not even a year. We were gone. And here there hasn't been any type of church really for us, because we've gone here and there and have done some things with people here and there, but it is completely void. There is no Foursquare church for me to attend, really, that's close by. We only got one left in Omaha. The main Omaha Foursquare church that I had come out of eventually closed, and it's turned into a Spanish church. God bless them, may they go for. And yeah, I mean, there's a couple other small congregations, but I don't think anything has ever really happened in Omaha with the Foursquare church. And I've been sitting without a church now for a few whiles, but in 2010, 11, my wife got sick with myasthenia gravis, and she is not the same person. It's attacked her immune system. I've had to take care of her, and meaning I have to help. This disease has kind of crippled her in the sense that I have to help her dress. I've had to help her bathe. I do all the cooking and the cleaning and all of this. And then it was in, I guess, 2012, I'm trying to work and take care of my wife, that I was introduced to full preterism. And this is what my Full Moon podcast is about, is dealing with this and eschatology. But full preterism is the idea that Jesus returned in 70 AD and all prophecies are fulfilled. And so that got me stirred up, and why not? Kelly is kind of disabled. I'm not going to be traveling anywhere real soon, so I decided to go back to school. I earned my Master's of Divinity from Grand Canyon University. From there, I went to Regent University and earned a Master's in Master of Divinity first, then Master's in Theology from Regent University. An extra year and a half of school. And when that got done, of course, I started in on my PhD. I finished up all my work, and I am currently working on my dissertation. Instead of working on my dissertation right now, I'm creating a podcast and talking. But that's been kind of my life in a nutshell. And then next podcast coming out, I'll get into more details about certain aspects and certain things that I've had to deal with. And of course, one of those things is the over the years, the things that I've run into when it comes to demonic activity. I'll be talking about speaking in tongues and all of those. That'll be things that'll come up and discussing and we'll get to know about. So instead of just rattling on right now, curiosity. I'm trying to think of a good song to close us with. I got Rhythm of My Heart, Rod Stewart. Goodbye Stranger was a good song back then. Breakfast in America, I'll Stop the World, Forever Young, Motown Records, Breakfast Club. I like Motown Records. Let's put that one on, and we'll close out with Motown Records. Thanks, guys, for listening, for subscribing. Remember now, you can go to my YouTube channel. I'm there, Elisha's Bones. Here's my advertising and commercials now. You can go to that, and you'll see the podcast that I've been doing for the last 3 or 4 years concerning full preterism and answering responses as an apologetic to that. Then my book has come out on Amazon.com, self-published, and it's published under Elisha Bones Publishing. Now, I have opened up my own publishing company, and it's for self-publishing, and I'm working out the kinks and ideas, but I do have a website called middleism.org, where you can go to that and see everything that I've been doing. It's all put out there. That is middleism.org. Then I have a WordPress that's connected to it, middleism.org/WP, where I write up a blog and different things go through there. So you've got the written, you got the physical, now you got the podcast. So you have all of those put out there. And, of course, then my new book is out on Amazon. You can find it under my name, Stephen Whitsitt. It is the Simplicity of the Last Days, where I go through eschatology in general, the Revelation, book of Revelation in general. This is not meant to be a commentary, but just to help people get some answers and chronology and those kind of basic ideas. I will be trying to work and finish up my PhD by the end of the year. PhD is the dissertation is on the timing and nature of New Testament prophecies. That will be my main focus, along with my other writing that I'll be doing. I'm getting some other writing stuff done. You can find my other works and stuff that are on Amazon, along with that book, The Simplicity of the Last Days, making the book of Revelation easy or simple. One of the two words I used. So I encourage you, please go look and stay tuned and subscribe to the podcast. As we got through this Christmas vacation, of course, I have more time to do more things. So thank you for sticking around. And here is Rod Stewart and Motown Records.
Take chances, go ahead, just do it, and trust yourself. There's a soul in the city watching over us tonight. There's a soul in the city saying everything's gonna be alright. So bring over some your own Motown records. We'll put the speakers in the window. Cause leaving you lucky, that's all. And showing just a little bit of faith.